Hey, Trinity Directors. Wanted to give you a quick shout about some things that we covered in our last directors meeting, especially because a number of us were not able to be there, whether due to vacation or conferences or things like that. You'll notice that behind this little intro is a short video. I filmed it with my phone, so sorry it's a little bit shaky, of Pastor Bob Wessels walking us through the new staff development tool. This is the tool that was created by the DBP that was led by Cheryl O'Brien and team. It's a two-part tool, and so you'll want to be able to watch this video as Bob just kind of walks us through things to remember, how to be able to deploy and utilize the tool with our staff, and then what you'll be able to submit back to me as a function of our next checkpoint where we're going to prototype the tool and its use. So with that, you'll also notice attached to this email are both parts of the development tool, the part that you will hand to your staff member that they'll bring completed before you meet with them, and then your section that you'll actually complete as well. And so you'll want to just take a look at what's there so that you'll be aware of it. Having said that, once again, on the back end of checkpoint 3, we will prototype this tool. You'll want to do this with your staff team. And then we'll get together again after you submit it back to me to be able to walk through and figure out if there are any final adjustments that we need to make to the tool before we use it as a regular part of our process, starting with checkpoint 1 in the next ministry year in January. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. And stay tuned to hear Bob Wessels walk us through the last component of the staff development tool.
We already did kind of a training. Well, Michael did an excellent job with a PowerPoint showing you how to use the tool. It's been tweaked just a little bit. It's been turned into a portrait now instead of a landscape design. The colors were changed. So that's about it. But we want to know this is a way, this is not the way. And this document, this tool is dynamic and it's fluid. We expect it will change and morph as you guys give us feedback. Now there are two parts to it. You know that. There's the supervisor part and there's the staff reflections. The only part you need to turn in is the supervisor. If you want to pass those out, that'd be great. Is the supervisor part. Because the staff reflections is going to be for your subordinate to put their thoughts on that and then bring to the table. Because what we found in the BCWI survey is that there was a lack of communication. So when there's no communication,
Thanks.
then there's no understanding. And so what we're going for here, and this is what made this group so effective under the leadership of Cheryl, is because Cheryl is a master at collaborating. She was able, everybody at the table was a content expert in doing evaluations and things like that. And getting 4 or 5 people together and drawing out their strengths and then collaboratively coming up with something new takes somebody with her kind of skills. And so that's what this is. And so now that's the frame of mind we want you guys to have as you do your, well, they're not evaluations, it's as you do the appraisal or the
Development tool.
Development tool. Now, developing is, we want you to focus on that because we're trying to develop the employee, and it's a tool / instrument, because the tool, you use a tool to do something. You know, you pound with a hammer, you turn a screwdriver. A tool does something, this is going to do something, but an instrument then measures things. So this thing that you've been handed is there to help you develop your employee, develop your leadership skills, and then hopefully through this, it can measure that as well. Okay, are there any questions at this point? All right, I'm gonna move on then just to communication. Now, there's one thing this is not. This instrument is not supervision. Supervision is taking care of issues when they happen. So I'm rating Michael, and he comes in for our development time, and I bring up the fact that you've been late over the last 3 months 6 times. No. To supervise him, I should have told him that the second time he came in late. You know, can we agree it's best if we all show up on time? Yeah, we can. Slows a bunch of people down, does whatever. So this is not supervision. So what we're doing then is we're developing. So here it is. If we can together, if Ann and I can sit down and we can collaborate on a way to make things better for me as the employee and her as my boss, it's going to strengthen our church, is going to strengthen the staff and get us moving in the same direction. Does that make sense? Okay, so what we're looking for here is not communication. Communication is the vehicle by which we're going to get where we're going, but we're not looking for communication, we're looking for understanding. So let me ask you, what is the difference between just communication and understanding? Anybody?
When I use tons and tons of acronyms, I'm communicating, but if you don't know what they stand for, don't know what they mean, you're not understanding.
Absolutely.
Not that that actually happens.
You came up with that answer, PDQ.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so look at your
Wait, what?
supervisor, look at your supervisor sheet. And is there anything on that sheet of those 5 areas that you would like some clarification on which you would like clarification? You're all supervisors, it seems pretty self-explanatory to me. I don't want to insult your intelligence, but I wanna make sure if there's a question, you ask it.
I mean, these are pretty broad, right? These
Right.
categories. So are we talking? Is there anything that you would recommend to us to focus on, particularly other practices? Are you talking about? I don't know if there's anything in general that you would say, hey, these are kind of the lane markers. They're dotted lines. You can go outside of them, but here we would, for unity of like what this looks like as we across how we all rate. Are there any general?
Are you talking like all 5, or are you just,
Yes.
is there one sticking out in particular that's, see one?
You talking about the staff practices, Ben?
No, I'm talking about the 5 accomplishments area for development.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So you're still on the first page?
Yeah.
Okay, so number 1, the following stands out as your most significant contribution or an accomplishment. Now, this is where, okay, Ben, it's a great question. Is what you're looking for with that particular employee, is it personal development so that they can grow more and be more of an asset to you as a leader or something? Or is it their performance? And so, what if the most significant thing you saw in one of your people was, you know, I'm seeing you, well, let's just take me. I'm seeing you, Bob, that you're not so quick to speak. You know, you're thinking about what you say instead of shooting from the hip. So it could be a development like that that is enhancing the relationships with the other ministries or something like that. Or it could be something very mission particular to worship arts. Does that make sense?
Right, so it can be all across the board.
Absolutely.
So we're not necessarily saying, hey, for this first round, you know, it'd be helpful if we all kind of had a general focus of this particular area. We're just saying, whatever impression we might get, respond to that because, I mean, I think very abstractly, right, as opposed to, so I might give kind of more generic, general overview type of things that,
Mm-hmm.
and if you saw mine, it might look different from somebody else who might be very mission particular.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we compile them, right, the way I would say, wow, you've really grown. I mean, I wouldn't be this abstract or generic or vague. Wow, you've really grown. That's been your most significant contribution. So I'm kind of, is there a common language you'd like us to use? I don't know, I'm just wondering so that, you know, when you read mine and then you read someone else's, you're not like, wow, these look like 2 completely different things.
Absolutely great question, because you're very right, this is very particular, because I know Michael has FMRs. I used to be an FMR. That's like mission particular, you know, I mean, Are you vacuuming, are you, you know, doing a thorough job? Are those chairs set up straight, you know, I mean, are the bathrooms clean? He's got specific things he can look at, whereas you may not. Now, I do wanna direct you though to number, the third one. My priorities for you in the next month. Now, this is where you, as a supervisor, you should know where you're going based on your ministry year plan and things like that. And this is where you're gonna find out when they come to the table with, they think their priority for the next 4 months is, you know, are you communicating and is there understanding? So, you know, I think what I'm answering is yes and yes, but I think you bring up a very valid point that we don't want to be too vague. So I can say, Ben, you really played the piano good. You know, and that's, what does that mean? It's totally nebulous. But if I start talking about the chords you used, that you didn't miss a note, or that there were dynamics, you were soft and you were loud, and you did things only a piano player would know how to do, and you weren't just up there pounding away as hard as you could. There was some finesse there and some interpretation. I can articulate that, and then somebody reading that goes, oh yeah, Ben does this, and I've articulated what you've done well. As opposed to saying, I've articulated those points, as opposed to saying, you did this well. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay.
So just for a point of clarification, so from a tactical deliverable point of view, you're going to do both of these sheets. You're going to give the blue tool to your employee. They're going to fill it out before they get to the meeting with you.
Right.
You're going to fill out the green sheet before you actually have the meeting with them.
Right.
And then at the end of the meeting, they're going to sign, you're going to sign, and then you turn that in to me.
Yeah, but just one caveat there. You'll notice on your sheet, it's got additional supervisor notes.
Mm-hmm.
That's so you can write notes on what they brought to you, because you're not taking from them their sheet. That is their sheet, they can keep that in their record somewhere, but that doesn't go with the supervisor sheet. The supervisor sheet is the only thing you will turn in.
So if Ben and I are meeting, and what Ben signs on his blue tool is his most significant contribution and accomplishments that he believes were that they did excellent weekend gatherings week after week after week. But what I think his most significant accomplishment is that he developed, encouraged, and led his team into greater attentiveness to the Spirit. So I might have written something completely different down, but in the supervisor notes, I would write, Ben thought his most significant accomplishment was, right, so I have an opportunity to mirror and reflect what Ben thinks on my own notes, so that when I, as an executive pastor, get these back, I'll be able to see both what the supervisor and what the employee, and whether or not there's parity or polarity, right? So, between them. So again, optimally, Ben would fill out the blue sheet. He'll keep that on his own so that he can see what he thought, and then Ben can make his own notes based on what what I as the supervisor said, right? Like Ben can make notes while we're talking too.
Now you're talking as the subordinate.
Yeah. So if Ben reports to me when we have the meeting, Ben's coming with his blue sheet filled out. I'm coming with my green sheet filled out. Okay, I'm going to fill on the green sheet additional notes that Ben said before I turn it into the executive pastor. That guy.
Well, and again, it's talking about discussion highlights, not everything or not any
Right.
particular section each time.
Correct. But if I said to something to Ben, hey, you know, one of the things I really noticed was that you've implemented praying both before and after, and I really thought that was great. If Ben didn't actually note that on his blue form, he can note that as well. That was a good thing, and then he keeps that, so that he's got a continual record as we move forward. But what gets actually turned into the executive pastor is the green sheet with your supervisor notes, your employee notes, and then both of you signing it and giving it to me.
Right.
Did you guys notice, or did you do any kind of simulations to figure out approximately how long one of these should take when you do one of these with an employee, or would it vary too much?
No, we thought it would vary too much, and we, with every person, it's going to be different.
Okay.
And I'll get you in just a second. Were you right? Yeah. And just so we're clear, you guys know your ministry directors. You know what the direction your ministry is going, and you'll know when someone is doing the appropriate job or not. I'm having a hard time articulating because I don't know, I played in the band, but I don't lead the band.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can tell you, I I would say to someone on the road, hey, you did a great traffic stop. Well, that doesn't mean anything. But if I wrote, as I rated, because I was a training officer, you did a head check before you got out of your car to look so you don't get run over by a car. As you walked up toward the suspect car, you pushed on the trunk to make sure it was shut, you know, and that nobody would pop out of the trunk and shoot you. You had your gun side back. You leaned up to the window. You didn't stand in front of the door where you know, I can articulate all those things that make a good traffic stop. I can articulate all the things that make a good shot. I can't articulate what it means to keep the books right, you know, or to not beat a child out of frustration.
Wait,
Minimum
what?
standard. Baseline.
My goals for you in the next 4 months are stop beating the children.
I'm a little concerned Bob can't articulate that.
And he's in care.
That's
Yeah,
why.
that's how the marriage counseling is. You're doing good. Yeah. No. So you want to avoid vague and ambiguous language.
I know Katie has a question, but mine's directly related to that and kind of piggybacks
I
on
think
that.
hers was too. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So
It's almost like you
give
guys are
me
related.
My priorities for you in the next 4 months, because there is. So I could say, and that I could very well see one of my teammates say, I'm going to work on recruiting for the next 4 months. That's very important. Is the hope that we get more specific than that? Like I will recruit 4
Yes.
new volunteers. And I mean, I know you would say yes. So is that the hope that those will be very measurable? Like, yes, I did recruit 4 volunteers in the last 4 months.
What
or
is the
just this
goal?
vague recruiting.
Well, okay, what is the overall goal? The overall goal is staff development, which makes your staff stronger, which leads into a stronger microcosm of what this body, you know, this body of believers here.
Yeah.
So it's not siloing, you know, it's, you know, yeah, those kinds of things. So I would say, no, it's not about numbers, but if the XP says it is, then buy or leave.
Right.
Honestly, I would lean more towards that because then that gives me something 4 months from now that I can say, okay, so we
If
said.
that's your preference though, Carolyn, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
and that's okay. I think that's what Ben was asking. Well, he may not lend towards numerical things
Mhm.
like.
Here's the bigger
any of it
question.
is out there.
The bigger question is, are you and the person you're doing, are they on the same page? Are you on the same page?
Yes.
Did
Right.
they come knowing that
arrived at
recruitment
that.
was one of those things that we're trying to do? Or did they come going, you know, we want new toys? And you're like, no, we don't want new toys over the last 4. I must have done a poor job in communicating or you're not listening. You know, and so then we didn't have that understanding
Mhm.
that we're going for. So do you see, I mean, how this
Yes.
can be
But at
tailored?
the same time, part of me goes, if you just say, I want you to recruit 4 new volunteers in the next 4 months or whatever, how is that
Oh.
developing the
Right, we
person?
gotta
I mean,
go
I first. would think you'd have to get into,
Can I cut you off? Because we're almost done out of time. Katie?
Well, cause that was along my question of whose target are we aiming at? Cause like for Ben, I would write my priority is to increase my level of balance of work and home life. Like
Mhm.
to have that balance, cause it's more of an abstract, kind of thing. If I'm writing them for Jack, I'm gonna say, my goal is to have 60% engagement in Facebook posts over, and have it more, so like whose target are
You're-
we shooting at?
Can I clarify that?
Yeah.
You're not shooting for mine. You're shooting for your supervisors.
For the
Right.
supervisors.
But I just would like, but for me as an XP, what I would say is if it's not actually measurable or there's not enough specificity for the next time when you do the development tool to figure out if you made any progress, then it's not really a useful tool.
Okay. Cause
So-
that's my concern, is
Yeah.
if we are all going for our own supervisor,
it's not
then we are
widely
going to
different.
just separate and have the problem that we had with the last appraisal tool of my supervisor is super nice and gives me all 5s. This supervisor is super mean and gives like more accurate and gives 3s and 4s like you're supposed to. So we kind of run into a similar, issue when we're not all.
I think maybe that's part of it is my job, which would be to say after this first round of seeing what
Yeah.
all gets submitted, I might actually need to come back to Ben and say, hey man, this was great, but could you increase? What?
You guys are all getting twos.
Well, or I might go to Michael, right? I might go to Michael and say, "Hey, man, you did a great job appraising speed of cleaning, but you didn't address any of the issues related to whether or not they actually liked their job." Or you know, like I think maybe,
Grow.
yeah,
Of the
I-
balance, that's
right,
what,
right.
just as there's a checks and balances
Yeah.
of balancing those two, because
And you get,
it can't be all abstract, and it
No,
can't be
and
all.
but the first time we did our checkpoints, I think that actually surfaced. You guys might remember that's why it was such a train wreck, because I was anticipating a higher degree of consensus and a narrower kind of a narrower submission. I thought we would all be submitting within a narrower stream, and we didn't. So then I had to kind of go back and say, okay, hold on, that's not what I meant, and then we all had to kind of move closer. I think that'll show up.
and realize too, this is a brand new thing.
Yeah,
This is going to take a good year, maybe a year and a half, before we actually all start getting on the same page and realizing how we should be doing this. Now, I do wanna bring up just one final point, because, I'm beginning to wrap it up, sorry. How do we know if we have understanding? Greg, how do we know if we have understanding?
You can communicate it back to you.
Sure. I mean, we can't make assumptions, okay? So, Dave, what's your favorite food?
Anything that I can eat in a moment.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, you really don't have a favorite food, just whatever in front of you.
That's good.
Okay,
You got it.
alright. Ben, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
So if I understand you right, your favorite color is blue.
Correct.
Do we have understanding? Okay, I want you to notice something. Maybe you weren't watching, maybe you were. But with Dave, it was just a little, with Ben, it was a little bigger. When we had understanding, there was a smile. I see this in my office all the time. When you get married couples that have been fighting to start understanding each other, they smile. And we want to be understood. So the goal here is to get understanding.
Tell all your people to make sure they smile at the end of their development.
That's right. Okay, Eddie Murphy.
Your priority next four
Right.
months from now is to smile at you.
Yeah.
Every time I see you.
Okay, so we're kind of throwing you, this is yours. Do with it what you will, and then we'll tweak it as we go. So if there's no other questions, I think we're good for now. Are we?
Thank you guys so much for developing the tool. Thank you, Cheryl, for leading the development of the tool.
The team was, Michael, Felver, Jeff Schneider, me, and Cheryl.
That's really, I like it, it's good.
Me too.
Good.